In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to make simple ear wires to attach to your earrings. In all of these earrings, I've attached my handmade ear wires. And if you look closely, you'll see the styles are a little bit different. There are two types of simple ear wires that I like to make and use on my earrings. The type that you see here has an open loop on the bottom, and it's the most basic. That loop can be swung open, the ear wire is then attached to the earring itself, and it's closed. A more secure ear wire is the one that you see here. The loop incorporates a wire wrap that locks the loop in place with the earring and prevents it from coming apart. A close-up look clearly shows the wire wrap and the loop. I decided to incorporate a bead. I think the bead looks nice. I've flared out the back. Notice that the ear wire tapers from a flared out area to the normal width of the wire, which is 20 gauge wire. The reason is if it was wide in this part, this is the part that would press down against your earlobe and it might hurt your ear. So I like to keep it as thin as possible where the ear wire meets the ear. So there you have it. This is the wrap I prefer to use because it really locks into the earring and prevents it from falling off the ear wire. The other simple ear wire that I do use on occasion is the one that we see right here. Same basic design as this one, only difference is this is a loop that can be opened and closed. When you open a loop like this, you swing it from the side like that. Place your object, in this case your earring, in there, and then simply reclose it. By swinging the loop from side to side, rather than pulling it along the circumference of the circle, you don't distort the circle. This movement retains the shape of the circle. That's the proper way to open a loop. Here's a close-up view of a nice pair of earrings that I do plan to do as a video project. And you can see the incorporation of the wire wrap ear wire. This will not come apart. To make these ear wires, we'll need to use a pair of chain link pliers, a pair of our standard side cutters or flush cutters. This is a little different. I don't think you've seen me use this too often. This is a pair of bail making pliers, and notice the jaws are different diameter cylinders. This one is smaller, this one is wider, and we'll use that wider jaw to form the primary curve of the ear wire itself. And of course our round nose pliers, we can't work without them. Any loop that you might need to form will be made with this pair of pliers. Beautiful pair of pliers. A chasing hammer is also used to harden the metal and flare out the back of the ear wire. And of course, how do I do that? I hammer the metal with the chasing hammer on a steel block. While we're talking about hammers, the other hammer that you'll see me using is this. This is a rawhide mallet, and I also use it to work hard in the metal by gently hammering it on a steel block. The beauty of the rawhide mallet is it'll harden a piece of wire without changing its shape. I'll be using 20 gauge nickel silver wire. 20 gauge is the thickness I use for all my ear wires. When you make ear wires that are to actually be worn, make them only using sterling silver wire or an inert metal such as niobium. I often use niobium to hang my earrings. For example, this pair of earrings here is made exclusively out of niobium wire. Beautiful wire. It's anodized to turn it this blue color, and you can get it in a variety of colors. This is 18 gauge. It's a very inert metal, non-reactive against skin for most people, and the ear wires that we see that I made are also blue niobium wire, and I use the wire wrap method. Very secure. This is a new pair of earrings that I started this morning. It's a combination of nickel silver, watercolor paper, and the back is layered with a decorative mulberry paper. So what I'm about to do is attach my ear wires, construct and attach my ear wires to the top of these forms that will eventually become earrings. To make the ear wires, I like to start out with about 2.5 to 3 inches of wire. If this was sterling silver, I would measure it very carefully to minimize waste, but with this, I'm going about 3 inches. I'm making these in nickel silver for demonstration purposes, but if I was doing this for them to be worn, I would be making them in sterling silver. Nickel silver is not an ideal metal to use when making ear wires because some people are very sensitive to the metal and it can cause skin irritation. For illustrative purposes, I'm going to mark the wire with a Sharpie at the 1.5 inch mark, right there. Same thing with the other. Position my wire on my green board and mark it at the 1.5 inch point. Now at that mark, which is at 1.5 inches, I place my round nose pliers and I give the wire a 45-degree bend. Do it again. A 45-degree bend on this one. Having bent the 2 lengths of 3-inch wire at the 1.5 inch mark, the next step is to make that bend in the wire. To do that, I use my bail making pliers and I position them at the bend like this. In other words, the smaller diameter jaw is placed there. I get a firm grip and I bend that length of wire around the larger diameter jaw of the bail making pliers. Now you're beginning to recognize the basic ear wire shape. And that's a nice size opening right over there. Beautiful. Let's do it to the other half. Position my bail making plier at the 1.5 inch mark. And I bend that 1.5 inch length up and around the jaw of the pliers. Nice. Even when I'm making ear wires, I like to keep them symmetrical in development because that guarantees they're going to be identical. I mentioned that with earrings here. Let me just grab a pair I have laying around here. I'm going to eventually do this into a video. I like these very much. Combination of 14 gauge wire and watercolor paper. Beautiful. When I make earrings, I always make the pair, both halves of the pair at the same time. I do a bend on one, then I jump over and do the same bend on the other. This helps me maintain a nice symmetrical look. Coming soon as a video. The next thing is to introduce this bend over here. Now I like to keep my measurements exact. So what I usually do is determine a length that I feel works comfortably as an ear wire. I'll often mark my pliers. And here. That's where I'm going to make the bend. The pen doesn't want to. There may be a little, no, there's no slicky stuff on this. There we go. So, at that width of the plier is where I'll place my wire to make the bend. And here's what I'm talking about. Placing the wire there, I get a very definite length of wire. Before I do that, I want to just show you one thing. You know how I like to improvise and make my own tools? What I did for this, and I use this constantly, I don't want to damage these nice new pliers. I've taken an older pair of pliers that I use, and I grooved the jaws. I use my jewelry files to do this. Here, you could use a file like that actually. And I cut into the surface. What I can do now is I can very nicely place my wire in that groove and I give it the bend. But the other nice thing about this is you don't want to have a rough edge here. That would be disastrous. A rough, sharp, irregular point sticking into your ear is going to definitely cause some damage. So what I'll do, I'll hold it there, allow a little bit of the wire to stick beyond the pliers. Take my fine jewelry file, needle nose file, I love these, wonderful little tools, and flatten, there we go. Flatten the top of that. Having done that, I'll always smooth it out with a piece of sandpaper. I want that to be beautifully smooth when it's inserted in the ear. You don't want to have anything that could scratch your ear. Then I'll take a 240 grit paper, very fine paper, and continue to smooth that. I'm going to continue and develop the other half. Using our modified pliers, we give it that bend. Sand it a little bit. And I'll continue to clean it up later. So what do we have now? We have two nicely formed, almost identical ear wires. At this stage, before I go any further, I like to clean up the shape a bit on my steel block. I do want to flatten out the top part. with my leather mallet. Now, I'd also like to introduce the flair. Using my chasing hammer, look at that surface, beautiful mirror-like surface. I'm going to start to hammer out the back of the ear wire. You want to be careful when you do this not to widen the part that's going to be against your earlobe itself. I'm hammering out the back and the bend. That not only makes it look better, but it effectively strengthens the piece at that point. And not too much. Let me do the same to here. Because I want to stiffen up that piece of the metal. I don't want it to bend. We're about to attach the ear wires to the earrings. I could add a bead. I don't know, will a wooden bead work? It'd be a nice way of decorating it. Okay, I'm going to go with a wooden bead. I usually prefer to strive for simplicity in my designs, but I do like the incorporation of wooden beads. So let's see how it works. Add the wooden beads to the ear wire. Now we have to determine how low do we want the ear wire to hang. And I don't want it to hang too low. So pushing the bead up against the bend, I'm going to measure the ear wire at the 1/8 of an inch mark. Same thing here. Having measured and determined where the 8-inch point is from the bottom of the bead, I position my round nose pliers on that point and bend my wire at a 45-degree angle. There we go. Grabbing the other one at that mark that I measured at 1/8 of an inch, I'll bend that out at a 45-degree angle. What I'm doing is I'm making a loop. Why do I bend it out at a 45-degree angle? I want to center the loop. Nice. Now I can position my earring on the ear wire. And notice how I positioned it. I positioned the ear wire so it faces in. When you wear it, this faces towards the inside of your head, and the face of the earring itself is facing out. Now, I will grab the top of that loop firmly with my flat nose pliers and bend the wire around the down shaft of the ear wire just below the bead. Actually, I could do this more comfortably using 2 pair of pliers, so I'm going to take that other pair that I had before and bend it. Bend it. Nice. Now what I need to do is get into that little tight space, cut off the excess metal. This is why I wear my goggles. Let's see if we can make this fly out. Yep, you see that? It took off. You don't want it hitting you in the eye. Now, using my flat nose, I get in there And I continue to press the metal down and smooth it with my flat nose. Beautiful. Keep in mind, this video demonstration is not about the earring. It's about making the ear wire. In another video, I'll show you how to make that pair of earrings. So let's finish the other half. Take my earring, insert the ear wire, grab it firmly with my flat nose chain link pliers, hold the other end. Using a second pair of pliers definitely gives you a better grip. How many times did I go with the first one? 3. I don't know if I have enough space to do that on this one. That's why 1/8 of an inch is just too short. 1/4 of an inch. It'll look nice. That is tight. Okay. I'm going to trim off the excess. And finesse it with my flat nose. The finished pair of earrings with the attached ear wires. Before ending this video, I'd like to review how to form this wire wrap. The wire wrap makes for a very secure attachment of the ear wire to the earring, rather than simply using a loop that you can open and close, sort of like a jump ring actually. Using this ear wire, without attaching it to an earring, I'm going to form that loop to give you a better understanding of how to construct the loop. Having bent my bottom part of the ear wire out at a 45-degree angle, and that bend occurs at approximately 1/8 of an inch from the bottom part of the bead, I place my round nose pliers at the point of the bend, and I bend the wire up and around the jaw of the round nose pliers, like you see me do. Having done that, I will hold the loop firmly in place with my flat nose chain link pliers and bend the extended length around the ear wire to form the coil. Now, to do that, it might be easier to take a second pair of pliers, and this is how I always do it, and work the wire around. See that little length now that sticks out? After about 2.5, 3 wraps around, I'm going to have a little bit of an excess that sticks out. I'll always use my flush cutters, press them up against that length, and trim off that excess. You still, even after doing that, you're going to still have a little bit of piece that sticks out. So, what you can do is take your flat nose pliers, and this is what I don't think was very clear when I actually did it on the earring itself. I will take my flat nose pliers at this point and squeeze that little bit of wire down, and continuing with a gentle squeezing action, I work the pliers around the piece. This action of rotating the plier or the piece around like this and gently applying pressure with your flat nose pliers will effectively flatten out the coil. Then usually a little rebending might be in order. There we go. I hope this video clarifies how to make the simple ear wire. Thanks for watching.